Throughout the course of One Piece, we have encountered a whole host of backstories, ranging from the tragic to the heroic, and one character who I feel beautifully encapsulates both sides of the spectrum is none other than the newest member of the Strawhat Crew, the Knight of the Sea, Jinbei. Jinbei was both the last Straw Hat to join the crew as well as the last to be introduced into the story. He had made his debut in chapter 528, and interestingly, until the reveal of Dr. Vegapunk in chapter 1066, Jinbei was the character with the greatest length of time between his first mention and his eventual reveal, being originally referenced in chapter 69, which is a full 10 years before his first official appearance in the manga. In the present day, Jinbei serves a dual role within the Straw Hat Crew. He acts as the helmsman during travel and as one of the crew's powerhouses during combat. He is commonly regarded as one of the strongest members of the entire crew, second only to Luffy and Zoro in terms of bounty, and viewed in similar regard to the monster trio of Luffy, Zoro and Sanji in terms of battle ability. His durability is possibly even the strongest in the entire crew, having taken blows head on from the likes of Akainu and Big Mom, with only minor injuries to show from it. With his unique mastery over Fishman karate, he has even been shown to be able to take on Yonkos, as was demonstrated during the Whole Cake Island arc, where his attack was strong enough to eject Big Mom from the Thousand Sunny and save part of the Straw Hat Crew. In order to understand Jinbei's strength, infamy, and place within the Straw Hat Pirates, we must look back at his past, which many One Piece fans are unfamiliar with. In this video, I'm going to cover everything that Oda has revealed about Jinbei's backstory, from his humble beginnings as an orphan in Fishman Island slums to his official debut in the story, locked away within Impel Down level 6, waiting for the world's fiercest war in a generation to commence. This video is a part of a series where I explore the pasts and backstories of One Piece characters, including the Straw Hats, Supernovas, Warlords, Yonkos, and more. So we begin with the birth of Jinbei, which was around 46 years before the present timeline of One Piece, presumably on Fishman Island. Little is known about his parents or their fate, except that at least one parent was a whale shark, the same species of fishman as Jinbei. He had grown up in an orphanage that would later become the notorious Fishman District. As a child, Jinbei trained at the Fishman Karate Dojo, achieving a level 40 black belt faster than anyone before him. Although strong, the young Jinbei was defeated by Fisher Tiger, who after also defeating Arlong proclaimed himself as the leader of the Fishman District. Jinbei's life following this is relatively unknown, but at some point he had joined the Neptune army and had rose through the ranks, gaining significant status and responsibility. At that time, Jinbei was skeptical of Queen Otohime's push for closer relationships between fishmen and humans, noting her lack of support from the people. His relationship with Arlong was strained as their differing attitudes had caused tension. Jinbei had disapproved of Arlong's rude behavior towards Fishman Island citizens and had confronted him over his harassment of a Neptune army recruit. Despite their differences, both Jinbei and Arlong had admired Fisher Tiger, a renowned adventurer who had frequently voyaged into the Grand Line. Jinbei remained in Neptune's army until about 15 years before the current storyline, when both he and Arlong would resign from the military in order to join Fisher Tiger's pirate crew, the Sun Pirates, who had recently become enemies of the world government after Fisher Tiger's attack on Merijo. As the Sun Pirates' notoriety had grown, Jinbei had received his first bounty of 76 million berries. As a pirate, he used his strength to brutally beat marine opponents, fueled by his resentment towards the Marines and the world government for their indifference to slavery. The Sun Pirates frequently battled the Marines, including a memorable battle against Rear Admiral Kedar's troops. After this battle, Fisher Tiger warned Jinbei and Arlong not to kill humans, as doing so would stoop to their level. He had emphasized that the Sun Pirates' goal was to free the oppressed, rather than becoming cold-blooded murderers. Arlong had disagreed, advocating for instilling fear into humans through ruthlessness and brutality. Jinbei, on the other hand, had sided with his captain, which had silenced Arlong. Fisher Tiger later discussed their goals and Queen Otohime's vision with Jinbei. He was concerned about being perceived as ruthless as Arlong, and had hinted at his own inner demons here. As the years had passed, the Sun Pirates continued their adventure, freeing slaves and fighting Marines. They had visited an island in the Grand Line where Koala, a former Merijo slave, had lived. The island's inhabitants asked the Sun Pirates to take Koala home, which they had agreed to. Jinbei had empathized with Koala, who had displayed signs of trauma from her time as a slave. He made an effort to understand her, and eventually she had warmed up to the crew, and they had grown quite fond of her. Koala's slave brand was altered to display display this sun pirate symbol, signifying her moving on from her past. Eventually, the crew had found an eternal log post to Koala's home, which was located on Full Shout Island, but after returning her to her hometown, unbeknownst to Koala and the crew, a marine ambush led by Rear Admiral Strawberry was waiting. The marines had been tipped off by the villagers from both islands in exchange for overlooking Koala's former slavery status. In the ensuing battle, Fisher Tiger, who had accompanied Koala, had suffered severe wounds. The Sun Pirates had stole a marine vessel in order to escape, but Tiger's condition had worsened. As the crew had gathered around him, he had revealed his past as a slave. He was tortured by the celestial dragons before he was able to escape. His assault on Mary Jo was inspired by his desire to free others like him. On his deathbed, Tiger's hatred for humans persisted, and he had refused a life-saving blood transfusion from a human donor. Despite the desperate pleas of his crew, he had succumbed to his wounds and died. The crew had struggled after the death of Fisher Tiger. Arlong had started to attack humans and marines until Vice Admiral Borsalino had captured him. Jinbei assumed the role of captain in order to maintain stability and to continue Fisher Tiger's legacy. Under Jinbei's leadership, the Sun Pirates continued their activities but without killing anyone. During this time, Jinbei's bounty had risen to 250 million berries. The world government had invited Jinbei to join the 7 Warlords of the Sea, which would freeze his bounty and end his status as an enemy of the Marines. All of this is on the condition that he cooperates with the government. Despite heavy opposition, Jinbei had considered the offer as a means to strengthen human and fishman relations, and he had discussed his plans with King Neptune. Jinbei had eventually accepted the offer, which had led to Arlong's release. Arlong had grown to resent Jinbei and accused him of disgracing Fisher Tiger's legacy. He then informed Jinbei that he had intended to go back to being the captain of the Arlong pirates, and that unless Jinbei was going to kill him, he was not going to stop doing as he pleased. This naturally led to a confrontation between the two of them, and predictably, Jinbei had dominated Arlong. A beaten Arlong was then carried away by those who had wished to follow him and join his crew. Jinbei would then express his disappointment at Arlong's inability to truly understand Fisher Tiger's will, resolving himself to the fact that his former friend and comrade had fully embraced a path of darkness. Jinbei's first mate Aladdin had assured him that if Arlong went too far, then they would make it their responsibility to personally step in and to stop him. If you are interested in Arlong's actions after this point, then check out my video on Nami's backstory. Arlong plays a significant role in shaping the character of Nami, and his relationship with Jinbei is addressed when Jinbei eventually joins the Strawhat Crew. Shortly after this, the celestial dragon Donkyo Myosgard was shipwrecked onto Fishman Island. His intentions were to retrieve his former slaves that were freed by Fisher Tiger. Despite his injuries, he had arrogantly demanded their return to Mary Jo. The fishmen, ready to kill him without consequence, was stopped by Queen Otohime. Jinbei and his crew were present on Fishman Island at the time, and they had observed the entire interaction. Queen Otohime had warned her people of the danger of passing their hatred onto their children. Jinbei had then immediately recognized the similarity between her words and Fisher Tiger's. The two of them were mirroring the same ideal but with different methods. The celestial dragon was ignorant of the fact that Otohime had just saved his life, and he had threatened to shoot her. Now, before anyone else could react, all of the people present, including Jinbei, were shocked to witness that Princess Shurafushi had called forth the Sea Kings to her mother's aid. This had rendered the celestial dragon unconscious from shock. After several weeks of treatment, Myosgard was once again healthy enough to leave the island. Otohime had decided to accompany him on his exit. While the people of the island were anxious over their queen's safety, Jinbei was seen reassuring worried children and telling them to believe in the queen. Their fears were ultimately unfounded. Otohime would return from her trip not only safe, but with a letter of support from the world noble towards her efforts in improving fishman-human relationships. Her success would finally convince the citizens of Fishman Island to support her ideals, with swaths of the population stepping forward to provide their signatures for her petitions. Her success, however, was short-lived. One day, while preaching her views in the plaza, the box containing all of the signatures had suddenly caught on fire, and in the ensuing confusion, Queen Otohime was fatally shot. Jinbei, who was there at the time, ordered the soldiers to protect the royal family, in case the assassin had more than one target. Following the queen's death, Hodi Jones, a soldier in the Neptune army, had stepped forward claiming to have caught the culprit, who was revealed to be a human pirate. Knowing the effect that this information would have, Jinbei had told Hodi to keep it quiet for the sake of the queen's ideals, but Hodi had refused to comply. The revelation that it was a human that was responsible for the death of their queen had stifled the growing support that Otohime had painstakingly built, and instantly the public opinion had returned to one of skepticism and hostility. Unbeknownst to everyone and unrevealed until the Fishman Island arc, the person who was actually responsible for the queen's death was none other than Hodi Jones himself. Hodi had wished for the conflict between Fishman and humankind to escalate, and he had formed a plan to kill two birds with one stone by both eliminating Otohime, who was the biggest supporter of an improved relationship between the two races, as well as destroying the support of the population by framing a human for the death of their beloved queen. Jinbei alongside Aladdin would attend Otohime's funeral, openly displaying their sorrow over the death of another who had shared Fisher Tiger's ideals and resolve. Jinbei's next noble action would occur approximately 2 years before the start of the One Piece story, where he would come into conflict with the then super rookie Podcast D Ace, who had openly declared his intention to take Whitebeard's life. Jinbei had held a great amount of respect for Whitebeard because he had claimed Fishman Island in his name and had saved it from attacks or interference by either the world government or other ambitious pirate crews. This respect, alongside the companionship that he felt for the Whitebeard crew from his infrequent visits, would result in him willingly declaring himself an enemy to anyone who would wish them harm. Jinbei and Ace would battle for 5 full days, with neither able to gain a significant advantage over the other. Eventually, the pair would collapse from exhaustion, though the fact that Ace was able to immediately rise to fight Whitebeard may suggest that he was just about stronger than Jinbei. Following Ace's eventual decision to join the Whitebeard pirates, he and Jinbei would develop a more friendly relationship. Jinbei's friendship with both Ace and Whitebeard would go on to influence his decision in refusing to answer the call of the world government to take part in the Marineford War, which would have meant that he was going to fight against Whitebeard, his crew, and all of his allies, all to ensure the successful execution of Ace. As a result of his refusal, he would be arrested and sent to the deepest level of Impel Down, where he would find himself locked in a cell with none other than his friend for whom an entire war was about to be waged. And this brings us to the present timeline of the story where Jinbei is introduced to us. I do hope that you've enjoyed this video covering Jinbei's past and backstory. Definitely let me know what you thought about his history in the comments. Was there anything about Jinbei's character that I've mentioned in this video that you didn't know about? I'd love to know all of your thoughts by continuing the discussion in the comments. Was there anything that I've forgotten to mention about Jinbei's past? And if you like this video and you want to see me cover more backstories, then please do leave your suggestions under the comments. If you're enjoying the regular One Piece content, then be sure to subscribe to the channel so that you can remain up to date on all of the latest One Piece videos and topics that I cover. Lastly, thank you for making it to the end of yet another One Piece video, and I can't wait to see you in my next one.
A massive thank you goes out to all of my amazing Patreon supporters for helping to make this video possible. If you also want to support the channel and see your name in the end of my videos, then check out my Patreon, which has loads of perks like early video access and so much more. Thank you for sticking around till the end of the video, and whatever you contribute will mean a lot to me.